We have Celeste Chitani from Mobisante. Mobisante has developed a lower cost, much lower cost, mobile ultrasound that is cloud-based and connects to your cell phone, and we'll hear all about it.
He's already done my speech. We're done. This is the device. Perfect. You're hired.
There you go.
Good afternoon. Delighted to be here. My name is Celeste Chitani. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mobisante. I spent more than 20 years building successful and not so successful businesses and products, and including a spin-off from Carnegie Mellon that was acquired by IBM and became a billion-dollar business for them. This time I plan to keep some of that upside for myself and for my investors. Until recently, I was managing about $100 million worth of investments for Microsoft to identify new and emerging areas where Microsoft could get into. And I started to look at the impact mobile was having in healthcare, education, and finance, especially in the emerging markets. And this was one of the proof of concepts that we developed. What was interesting was every time I would show this proof of concept, people wanted to line up and buy it. And we had to make excuses. Sorry, this is a research prototype. We can't sell it to you. And finally, there were two CEOs from Eastern Washington who approached us and said, look, if I was to focus on this full time, they will fund us to get the company going. And essentially, that's how we got started. We got some seed money from two large CEOs of clinics in Eastern Washington. And since then, we've sort of finished the product, and we're going to launch in a couple of months. So why did we start with ultrasound? A couple of very good reasons. I think my guess is a lot of you have kids here, and you remember going for an ultrasound for a typical exam to make sure kid's all right, mother is all right. What you may not know is more than 70% of the people around the world don't have access to diagnostic ultrasound. And it boils down to three fundamental things. It's big, it's expensive, and it's very, very hard to use. So this is a typical device that you're probably familiar with here. Think of this as the mainframes of the world. So what we have done is essentially taken off-the-shelf smartphones, standard smartphones, off-the-shelf transducers, and done some clever things in the firmware and created very sophisticated software to put it all together in a fully functional diagnostic ultrasound system that is good enough for the common things you want to do. And what's interesting is this is a fundamentally different class of diagnostic device because it's always connected. That means you can start pushing data out to the cloud. You can start to bring service providers that can add value-added services to it. And then we've designed the interface so mid-level professionals can use it easily. And that's very, very fundamental. We actually spent 9 months iterating on the interface to get it right. And obviously, it fits in your pocket. You can take it to the patient. You don't have to bring the patient to the ultrasound. And that's pretty important because it opens up the possibility of using diagnostic ultrasound in scenarios where you currently would not think of hauling these big machines. Now, clearly, if you are building something like this with such a small screen, it can't do everything that a $250,000 machine with a large screen can do. So it's very critical to find what are the target applications, although we think once we lower the price barrier and the convenience barrier sufficiently, people will find other uses. But here are the three targets that we are focused on. In ER, in emergency medicine, most of what you want to look for is quickly rule out signs of trauma. So if you get in an accident, you have no external sign of bleeding, people want to do the FAST exam to see a fluid in the abdomen. This device works perfectly. And then by extension, a lot of the ER services are manifest in the form of EMTs or of disaster response, people providing disaster response. And then also in scenarios like the armed forces, battlefield injuries, you want to rule out, do you have big bleeding or not? So this device works quite well. And in GP space, if you're already going for your annual physical and you're older than a certain age, you should be looked at for aneurysms, for kidney stones and such, and this device will work beautifully for that. In OBGYN, there's actually a huge market outside of the United States. The penetration of ultrasound in OBGYN is less than 15% in Africa and Asia. And most of what you want to do there is to really do simple things like confirm pregnancy, look for complications in pregnancy. Because if there are complications, you want to make arrangements for women to deliver in a real facility as opposed to delivering at home. And that has huge public health implications. 500,000 women die a year because of complications in pregnancy, most of which could have been avoided if they had a screening scan. The third thing we are looking at is vascular access. It is a standard of care in the United States that you should be using ultrasound to guide lines, central lines, PICC lines, doing IVs, because arteries and veins are next to each other. You pierce the wrong one. That's not very good. But it's very hard sometimes to find veins. And this device works quite well. Where we are, we were cleared by the FDA. This is a 510K device, a Class 2 device. We were cleared by the FDA earlier this year. We are the first cell phone-based diagnostic device ever cleared by the FDA, so that was an interesting story by itself. And then I think the device has caught a lot of attention and interest from the medical community as well as, I think, the broader community, because it's seen as first of all, it's pretty cool, right? There's nothing like, if you go for an exam and I can show you what I'm looking at, the level of engagement changes, your interest in healthcare changes dramatically. So it's pretty cool from that perspective. And the industry has recognized that as well. So we won the GSMA award recently for the most innovative device. And media has caught on to it, and this has helped us tremendously. And I think there are two reasons why the media has caught on. One, they see, obviously this is cool and interesting and unique. Nobody else has anything like that. What they're really catching on to is this is the future of medicine. There are never going to be enough doctors and hospitals to provide care to everyone who needs it. So the only way you can do that is you have to move care closer to the patient, out of the hospitals, to the clinics, eventually to patients' homes, and you have to move care out of the hand of highly trained experts to mid-level professionals, right? And these are the kind of devices that will help you do that. So that's our business. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Please tell me, are you going to sell the complete system, or are you going to sell the software? What's the final product that's going to be on the market?
So the answer is dependent on time. Initially, when we launch, we are giving you a complete system. Mm-hmm. After that, there are a set of services we roll out, starting with a web-based PAC system, and then connecting to a network of diagnosticians who can then provide diagnostics.
Yeah, tell me about that too, because this mobile network aspect of it is very important, I think, because it's that's the way to capture additional value.
Yes.
So what kind of business models do you see in that space?
Yeah. It's user-based and services-based model. So again, because we're a startup right now, in the first stage, this is going to be straightforward. You get the complete device, because we need to establish the diagnostic value of the device on its own. But it already has connectivity that's using to send the data off trivially. I'll have to show you a demo afterwards. We've integrated the workflows very nicely. In the next rev, as in 6 months, we will launch a web-based PACS, and then people will pay us usage charges for that. Eventually, we want to...
the providers?
Yes, yes. This is for providers. Obviously, it's a prescription device. Afterwards, once we get the cogs of this system down enough, our goal is to give this device for free, and you're paying us service revenue on a monthly basis. And and that business is very attractive. I used to run a device and service business for Microsoft, so I know that allows you very easy upselling, cross-selling, and then it's a cumulative base, and you move away from capital goods sale. It's a very attractive business when you go to that. And it's also something that established players will find it difficult to duplicate, because they make money by selling you all the add-ons. You want a PAC system, yeah, that's another $25,000. You want a connector to EMR, that's another big check. So the total cost of ownership of this approach is 1/10 of what a standard device company will get you for.
Okay, one more. There is only one wire between the transducer and the phone?
Yes, it's a USB connector, costs $5.
So the power of the phone is enough to power the sort of...
That's where some of our IP is. How do you make this work in such a constrained environment?
Okay.
And how do you actually then leverage connectivity to understand the context in which you're doing diagnosis, the history, your history. So Amazon, when you go try to buy a book on Amazon, they know everything you've done before, and people like you who have done before, right? And they use that to target what you want to buy. There's no reason you can't do this in diagnosis. So that's some of our IP as well.
So the power of the phone battery is enough to operate the transducer.
This will work for 60 minutes non-stop scanning. And if you put a more powerful battery, it will go for 3 hours non-stop.
Okay.
So this is largely adequate for 2 or 3 days of field work.
Thank you.
So you talked about the IP for a second. Is that all of the IP, or you have other IP as well?
Yeah, so we have patent applications in 3 areas. One around how do you optimize under the constraint of the network and the power. The other is how do you leverage connectivity to guide diagnosis. And the third has to do with how do you make precise measurements on a touch-based device. That's actually a pretty broad thing we discovered. Nobody else had done this, and we were unique. And then we have something else. We actually have an exclusive with the maker of the probe. So we have a couple of years exclusive with the maker of the probe, because that gives us...
So someone else makes the probe, you don't?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And because we are focused primarily on software R&D, our fixed costs are very low. If I had to do custom hardware, I would have to raise tens of millions of dollars. And then the problem with that is, as soon as you're done, you're out of date, because there's a whole industry. The Qualcomms of the world are spending a couple of $1 billion a year. I wait for a year, I get a better image quality, better resolution, with no money out of my pocket. So It's a good model that way. Any other questions?
That's it.
All right.
All right.
Well,
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.